Shot me. If I could drop my mic, I would drop my mic. Oh! No, he got me. Oh, baby!
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the OPSEAT video podcast. I'm your host, Droopy Jors, the social media director for OPSEAT. We created this podcast to introduce you to successful gamers who have used various strategies to build personal brands and make profit with them. Please make sure to like and subscribe wherever you enjoy your live streams or your podcast. Today, we are joined by Jillian from HotSpawn. Thank you so much for joining us today.
No problem. It's a pleasure to be here today.
It's truly an honor to be able to talk to other people from the field. And, some of those who are listening to the podcast, they may not heard of HotSpawn, or they might have. Could you give us a little bit more insight into what HotSpawn does?
Of course. So we are predominantly an esports news publication site. We focus on creating content on many different verticals. So we cover stuff like CSGO, Dota, League, sometimes Rainbow Six, the FGC community, Smash. One of the ones we're doing recently is Farming Simulator, which has been really fun. But generally, we're creating content for our readers and for esports fans to keep them in the know and keep them up to date with what's developing in the industry.
And it's absolutely fantastic. And it seems you have, you have everything from articles to guides to reviews on products. And we're kind of curious, how did HotSpawn get its start?
So HotSpawn was, HotSpawn dream, really. I think it started we launched mid-September of just last year, so 2018. And we were really focusing on pushing a publication site that could be accessible to fans and deliver the type of content that they're looking for that might be overlooked by bigger organizations that are, focused on getting, the most viral clicks on the latest Twitch clips, or are focused on, the most specific breakdowns of why certain meta heroes work, or why certain drafts are being done in games. And so we wanted a website that was accessible, that was inclusive, and that really made that connection between reader and esports players and esports teams and just the industry on a whole.
That's absolutely fantastic. Definitely. Going through there and reading some of the articles, there was a lot of insight that you typically wouldn't be able to see from other, just on the ways that the articles are written and things like that. Really nice.
Yeah, we focus a lot on having different voices. We like to make sure that the writers who are on our staff are able to use their specific voices and aren't toned or aren't changed to reflect, a larger corporate voice. You want to make sure that they maintain their individuality. And that really shows through with the articles, whether it's a tech review, whether it's, a tournament preview for the TI that's going to be coming up soon, or even just a guide on how to play a specific hero in Overwatch, for example.
It feels a lot more personal as a reader, which is fantastic.
Yeah, and it's something that in the industry you kind of lose sometimes, especially when you have so many people trying to make similar content.
And with you guys starting just about in September of last year, what can you tell me about the journey from your first article to where you are now?
Honestly, a journey is a good way to put it. I think when we started, it was a lot of, just focusing on one foot in front of the other. It can be a really daunting task to launch a website, regardless of what it's for. And in the beginning, it was a lot of, we want to do this, and having that kind of splintered. There's so much in esports. How do you, start to rein it in and have a focus? And I think since then, we've really started to hit our stride, and we've really started to dedicate our resources to doing what works the best for us. So I think a lot of it was like that stumbling when you first start running. You're trying to find your feet, trying to find your footing, and now it's a lot more like we're in the stride. We know what we're doing. We're getting better. We're getting more organized. We're doing more event coverage. We're actually doing in the September. We're doing our first ever partnership with an actual esports organization. So we're sponsoring a tournament in September. So it's like, it's kind of our full circle moment. We started in September, and now here we are a year later, and we're going to be going to events, and we're going to be doing live interviews, and we have, that big moment for us.
That's incredible. And it'll be really awesome to be able to see all this, the video content that'll be on the website with the interviews and everything like that. And a lot of like websites, they don't typically get that within a year. You'll see.
No, we're a tad ambitious, I'd say.
It's amazing. It's amazing. And could you do us a favor and tell us a little bit more about your role with HotSpawn?
Yeah, of course. So I started actually as a writer. That had been my passion for many, many years. But I came into the role with a lot of experience in communications and marketing. And very quickly, as the team grew, I was presented with the opportunity to move up into a management position. So I quickly moved into working with other organizations such as you guys, or creating partnerships with the people we have, the Midas Mode, in September. But it also meant that I started doing outreach teams and players to set up interviews, to set up, content that we're producing either for them or for ourselves in new and exciting ways. So a lot of my job is emails. A lot of my job is managing the social media. So if you ever see a mistake, that'd be me. If anyone does social media, you know that once in a while when you have that one typo on Twitter, you're just like, and this is why I need like the edit function in Twitter. A lot of it's social media, a lot of it's emails, a lot of it's hard work for a future plan that or a future goal that sometimes feels like you're just like literally pushing through, I don't know, molasses to get to something like that struggle. But once you get there and once you see that either partnership or collaboration or interview, it makes it all worthwhile.
You're not wrong in the slightest. Definitely not.
It's hard. Like when I think anyone who is in a position where you have those long-term goals, or they're not the short-term, write an article, it takes you a couple hours, you edit it. I mean, fingers crossed it takes you a couple hours, and then you edit it and then it's published and you have that that small satisfaction of that's my work, and people like it and comment on it and you have that satisfaction. But I've always been like the long-term person who wants to push for that bigger goal, to have that bigger sense of accomplishment for the company and organization that I work for. So it's definitely been a bit of a shift from being predominantly a writer and getting those small satisfactions to something bigger with bigger rewards.
Exactly. And with HotSpawn, did this start more of as a creative outlet with everybody who's involved, or has it always kind of had the long-term goal to make it a bigger, more profitable?
So it's always had the long-term profitable. Let's be as big as we can. For HotSpawn, we have, I would say lofty goals, but we have the big dreams of being an organization that people come to for, their news and for their interviews and for, catching up on everything they might have missed while, a tournament in Shanghai was going on or somewhere else in the world that they couldn't watch. We want to be that staple in someone's life. And so our dreams have always been to get there. So it started, smaller. We started with a very small, close-knit team, and we've been progressively growing over the past 11 months. And we're hoping that within, the next year, almost next year, but year 2 will be even bigger and even better.
And we certainly wish the best of luck going into, year 2 and, crossing that annual milestone.
It's a big deal.
Definitely.
It's a big deal. First year is always like, oh, we did it, we got it. Now what do we do?
You got to keep pushing forward and it'll be fine.
Exactly. Yeah.
So coming from, the journalism side of the website and still kind of sticking with it, what would you say your favorite part about being, the HotSpawn community manager?
I'd say it's getting to see the community involvement. I have been doing social media for almost 7 years now. I started doing it with nonprofit organizations. And then I as I grew into esports, I kind of transitioned that with me. And I think that's one of the biggest rewards, is seeing the community involvement and seeing the people interact and engage with our material. I take great satisfaction in knowing that I'm kind of like that in-between person that gets the content that the writers are creating to the community and seeing them engage. That's what I really enjoy. I really enjoy seeing people's comments on, what they want to see next. We had a poll a little while ago that was really fun where we asked, what kind of content do you want to see like us produce this week? And unsurprisingly, it was a farming simulator where like 80% of the people voted. And it was just such a great moment because it's something that, a couple of us on the team were really excited about. And then seeing the community engage as much as we are with the material was really, gives us that spark. Like, yeah, we're doing this right. And we're seeing them want more of the content we're
Now, did you ever see yourself, kind of doing this thing, I know you started with the nonprofits doing social media, but did you ever think that, this was going to be one of those long-term goals that you're in the position you're at now?
I can honestly say no. I actually started, so long story short, I started in university as a music teacher, and then I took 2 years off, which I totally recommend for anyone who needs to figure out their life. And then I went back to school for religion. And then when I was in school for religion, I started doing work with nonprofits and I started doing community management for a research organization that I was at. So I went from that into graduating being, I don't know what I'm going to do with my life. What does a religion degree get me? Which, by the way, is really not much. And then kind of going, well, what makes me happy in life and what do I want to do? And up until that point, esports had been like my side passion where I was like dedicated myself to the screen to watch every Dota tournament there was. I was following everyone on the scene, and I was that really annoying person in our friend group, who was always like, "Oh my gosh, did you see that play last night?" Or like, "Oh my goodness, did you hear about the trade? Like, did you hear?" Like, and I was always the one talking about this to a room full of people who were like, "We really don't care, Jill." So I started thinking, okay, what makes me happy? And esports made me incredibly happy. It was my competitive outlet. It was my passion. It was the thing that I knew, more than most things in life, unfortunately. And I said, okay, well, how do I take this and how do I, take it from what my passion is into potentially a career for myself? And so I started doing interviews. I started traveling to events and doing professional players. I started doing, just really writing for anyone who would pay me, essentially. I did work for free for a while, and then eventually I was getting paid to do it. And then it kind of slowly morphed into this, well, I have communications management experience and I have social media experience. So what is the next step for me? And that's always been something that I have been very passionate about, is that next step, right? I've never been complacent or okay with where I am at this moment. It's always been, okay, well, what can I do in the next 3 weeks or 3 months or 6 months to get me to that next step that I want to be at? And so I can confidently say I did not think I would be where I am right now 10 years ago. Can I say that I am confident that where I am now is something I saw 3 years ago? Yes. But it's definitely been a progression and a shift of mentality from I need to have that stable 9 to 5, I don't know, business job or the jobs you're told as a kid you're supposed to get, to having a job that I get to travel around the world and I get to work with, organizations such as you guys, or interview my favorite teams, or talk to players that I looked up to as a teenager. I think I didn't think I'd be here necessarily, but I think that this is where I should be.
It's fantastic to have you in this, the realm of esports. Certainly in the state that it is, where it's growing astronomically.
For sure.
We kind of wanted to get your take on, the current state of esports compared to standard sports, and kind of where HotSpawn fits in.
Yeah. So in regards to I'm just going to clarify. So from a perspective of like traditional sports to esports, the development is I was watching Dota, which was my game that I started with, which is why I always have a handy mug with me. I started watching Dota in 2000, like just after TI1 was when I started watching. And I got introduced to it because my husband was playing it and I really enjoyed watching it. I would watch it all the time. And because I was so into the competitive scene, I have been following it since almost, I'm not going to say its inception, but pretty close to it. And I can confidently say that it's grown in ways that I don't think a lot of us had expected. It's it might not be the most popular in comparison to like say Fortnite, which has the highest numbers on Twitch, but it has the highest prize pool in the entire world, which is something a lot of people sometimes seem to overlook, I'd say. Right now it's at $32 million for a prize pool, and 14.5 million is going to the first place team, which is incredible. That's the highest.
That's an amazing amount of money.
It's inconceivable to think that one team of 5 players, and of course some of it will go to the organization, coach, and everyone, but one team is going to walk away with potentially $14.5 million. That's a life-changing amount of money. And to think that we went from having a tournament that was $1 million and the top team was getting a good percentage of it, now we're having teams win $14.5 million and they're walking away multi-million. So as far as it's grown exponentially. Like I look at behind the scenes stuff, like my position, or interviewers, or multimedia, or videographers, like all of these jobs that weren't here 6 or 7 years ago. There's now an industry full of working professionals who are doing this for a living, which is mind-boggling. Not to keep repeating it, but it really is. It's people always talk about pursuing your passion and pursuing your dream, and I think that esports has allowed people who previously didn't think that they could work in sports, they've been afforded that opportunity, or at least afforded the opportunity to try to get into it. It's not easy, but it's becoming more accessible, and it's becoming easier if you kind of are able to reach out and maybe ask for some guidance or just try, really. But in comparison to, say, traditional sports, we're still at a phase where esports is relatively young. The industry is very young. And you're comparing it to, the NFL, which is a game that I personally really enjoy as well, that's been around for decades. So, sometimes I think we get caught up thinking esports is huge and esports is growing, and then we have to remember it took the NFL how many decades to get to where they are now. And so, we keep climbing for more and we keep wanting more in the industry, but we also have to recognize that bigger prize pools isn't necessarily going to indicate more growth. We need more stability. We need more behind the scenes support. We need more of that, trajectory for players who want to enter into the industry for esports. It's very easy but it's relatively easy for a 14-year-old football player who's like, I want to become an NFL player, right? It's easy for them to say that and then have a coach who's like, okay, we'll work with you. And have your parents be like, okay, let's get you the coaches and let's get you the trainers and let's get you a nutritionist and let's talk to the actual organizations that can help set you up on that path. And then there's, you go from that to you go to high school football to college football, and then hopefully you'll be drafted. But that doesn't exist for you. And that's something that we overlook a lot of the time. So as far as we've grown in esports, there's a lot of holes and a lot of missing areas of the industry that we're just not paying attention to, developing as much as we could.
Exactly. And, as it grows, hopefully we can start saying that, maybe we don't need nutritionists for, gaming from day to day, but it would be nice to be able to, learn what some of, even people in your situation. I'm sure that being a journalist, you learn a lot more about the games that you play or the games that you have even a slight interest in than you did before.
Oh yeah. As a journalist, I think one of the things that we often overlook is the fact that, I fortunately enough have Dota as my primary, and then Overwatch, and then I have a couple other games that I'm very proficient in, but I'm not an expert in all of them. And I think that a lot of people don't realize how hard that is. I'm 29 now. I've been watching Dota and playing Dota for almost 8 years. Let's go with 7 just to round it out a little bit better. But I've been playing for 7 years, but I've been watching the industry and paying attention for almost 8. So I've had all that life experience of learning about Dota and the scene and watching it develop. And I think that a lot of people who want to get in don't recognize that that's a lot of effort that you as an individual have to put in. It's not a matter of getting a writing gig and being like, okay, I can write about esports now. It's what do you as an individual bring to the scene that is different than me or you or the next writer, or what are you going to talk about, or what are you an expert in that makes you more proficient in your field than somebody else. And I think that's something that we also need to consider. Esports is super duper young, but you have to put in the effort to learn the scene or the game. Pick a couple of them, or one is my suggestion actually, but pick one and then grow. And then as you continue, step on the ladder and climb up, you need to add games and you need to learn different parts of the industry. I'm very comfortable saying that while I know a lot about Dota and I know a lot about Overwatch and I love FSL and there's a couple of games I like, I don't know as much about the business side of esports, which is something that I've taken on myself to learn about, the nitty gritty aspect of, why teams are bought out and where the money goes and the individuals who are purchasing teams or players and what does it mean when certain language is used in the press release about finances. And that's something that I encourage everyone to do. Learn the aspects of the industry that you're not as familiar with so that you can become a more well-rounded worker and team.
Certainly. And just out of sheer curiosity, with you being able to go and learn about your favorite games, things like that, but getting your start watching your husband play Dota, would you say that you're better than your husband at this point because of all the knowledge that you have?
So we have this conversation a lot. He actually played Warcraft 3 mod. Like he played Dota when it was the Warcraft 3 mod before it wasn't even a thing. So he is mechanically a better player than I am. However, the argument in our group is I am a better drafter and I understand the in-game flow of the game a lot better than he does. So I generally will be the drafter and I'll generally be the shot caller for our group of 12 of us. But he is a mechanically better player than I am. That's also because I hate playing anything other than an offlaner or support. So I also limit myself in terms of, I'm not making the big plays, but I'm the caller and I'm generally the drafter. So he's mechanically better, but I am the better drafter.
You have the game sense, the game knowledge.
I have the game sense. I watch so much of it that it's like it just rubs off on you at some point. You're just like, if the pros can do it, I can do it. But
exactly.
I'm not mechanically as good as them to be able to do that. But yes, he is. I will give him that. He's mechanically better than I am.
And you'll actually see that a lot in professional esports, where you'll actually have a coach who would never be able to play as well mechanically as the players that they're coaching, but they have such team knowledge and game sense to relay that information to players. You'll see a lot of that.
It's so true. Oh, yeah, and it doesn't even matter what game you're talking about, whether it's Dota, League, CSGO, Fortnite, for example, as well. There's a lot of players that are transitioning into coach roles because they're much better at analyzing what's going on and they understand the game better than some of the players do, but they're just mechanically not able to execute the actions as well as their players who are currently in this. And I think that there's no disrespect or no anything. I think that, a coach or someone who can understand the game at a different or analyze it differently is just as valuable as a player. When you look at big games like Dota or CSGO, for example, you have coaches and League who are very actively involved in what's going on. And I think that stands as a testament as to how important it is to have individuals who are analytically more evolved and more involved with the game than perhaps the player.
Certainly. And I mean, it seems that you have a lot on your plate, and you always, it seems you're going to the next step. What advice could you give someone trying to become either a content creator or a writer or even a community manager for, a role in esports?
So I think the first step is figuring out what you want to do. I started doing interviews because I am passionate about people's stories. The real truth as to why I started was I followed the NFL I still follow the NFL, but I started when I was 15, 16, being a trainer and coach for a boys football team at my high school. And so I was very actively involved in competitive gaming. Mm-hmm. And I was always looking for the behind the scenes, stories from the players. I was really interested, to learn about why certain players were being chosen over others and why certain players were being drafted, why they're being moved or whatever. That was really, fun to learn about. But what I really, really, really wanted to learn about was the players themselves. What did they do before a game? How did they get motivated after a loss? What was that What was that spark that got them interested in playing football or Dota? And that was kind of how I started as a journalist. Was I wanted to deliver those stories to fans like me who were eager and wanted that material. And so it was very easy for me to know what I wanted to do to start with, because that was my motivation for entering into the scene. I wanted to bring people that content. I wanted them to learn about the player as a player and as a person, and I wanted to give that, who they are a chance to shine on screen. So for anyone starting, I'd say you have to think about what you want to do. If you want to be a content creator, what kind of content do you want to create? What is your motivation for creating content? If it's make money, don't think you should be doing this. If it's for delivering something that you see missing in the industry, heck yes, you should go after that. If you want to be a journalist, what do you want to write about? There are different facets of the industry. You could write about the business side. You could write about the competitive side. You could write about the more analytical side of the actual physical game itself. So you have to think about where you want to fall on that spectrum. And then from there, I hate saying this, but it's just doing it. At first I was really ashamed. When I started, I worked for a very long time, and I don't find many people who have not worked for when they first started. You have to kind of have someone take a chance on you. So it's about building relationships. As someone who works in communications and who's been doing social media since too long, I can't stress enough how important it is to network and not be afraid to reach out to people. I think that is one of the biggest that is the biggest piece of advice I can give, is do not be afraid of approaching somebody in a respectful and professional manner about asking for help or asking for a chance or asking for advice. That is, there was I can't remember who it was, but someone was doing an interview a couple months ago about whether or not somebody will help you in the industry is based. It was with Paul. He does a lot of podcasts, and he was saying that nobody in the industry will not help you if they're in the position to. So generally speaking, someone like me, if you reach out and you're like, hey, Jill or Kendryx, I'm really looking to get into esports. What advice do you have, or could you help me jump into a call and talk about it? I'm going to more often than not say, heck yeah, let's do this, and jump into a call, and then I'll probably talk about Left 4 Dead or Dota 2 too often and get sidetracked. But I'll help you figure out what your steps are or how you can get into it, or see if there's people that I can, connect you with and help you. So you really need to not be afraid, make those connections, take a chance on yourself, and also realize that, like everybody else in this industry, there is a moment when you're going to have to decide whether or not you want to jump in. I've done many interviews, and it's actually one of my favorite questions is that jump moment. When was that moment when you decided to make the jump or leap into esports, and how terrifying was it? And one of my favorite answers was from Jake, or Sir Action Slacks, who's a Dota 2 personality. And his was, he did really well on a Twitch stream one day, and then he decided to take a vacation from his work, and I think he was working at Outback. If I'm quoting that wrong, I'm really sorry, Jake. And he decided to take a leap because he'd made more money on Twitch than he had for tips the night before, and he decided to take a break from his work at the restaurant and just try esports for 2 years. Try streaming and see. My moment was I quit my full-time job with benefits, working as a general manager, to jump into esports. And I remember sitting down on my floor and I filmed it, surprisingly enough. Oh, and wow. I filmed it, and I was like, today's my last day at my job, and I am terrified. I don't know what I'm doing, but I know that if I don't follow what I want to do and I don't follow my passion, I'm going to be miserable, and I'm not going to live a happy life. And so, the camera's shaking. I've never published it. I will one day, but the camera's shaking because I'm just so I'm smiling and I'm happy. I'm terrified, but everybody in esports has that leap moment, and I think that I can rant and rave about networking, and I can rant and rave about working for free. You shouldn't, but it's a reality. But I think there's also this small part of me that wants every person who's going to get into esports or wants to recognize at some point this passion, some point this part-time gig that you're doing will have the opportunity to become full-time, or to take that really big next step. And I think that you need to recognize that and know, and kind of think about what you're going to do. Are you fully prepared if in 6 months you get offered a really good position to just jump full into esports, and what does that really?
Yeah, and it can be, like you said, I've had those moments where I'm on the verge of tears. I'm like, do I do this? Like, I'm gonna miss out on so many things. Like, I have a similar story where I left one of my best paying jobs with benefits, and I took a year off, and I was like, let's jump into it. I was like, I can either do 4 years and go to school and eat ramen every day and have a lot of debt, or I could, dedicate 4 years to, building my craft and going to streaming, or to, be within esports, or to be in the gaming industry is what I wanted. Yeah. And I could still eat ramen the entire time, and we'll see if it works out.
You're not gonna stay on the ramen. Either way, you're gonna get ramen. That was probably what let you do it, right? You were like, either way, there's ramen involved, so I might as well just do it.
Exactly. Like, either way, like, I knew I didn't want to be where I was, and I just jumped into it. And that fear, it kind of drives you, and at the same time, it helps you push over, hurdles that you might have encountered. Realizing that you're so desperately wanting to make your passion a reality. Was there a point in where you might have regretted making that decision, or like, well, not really regretted? Was there any like hurdle that you had to really, really overcome, either getting HotSpawn off the ground, or missing those benefits?
So I rarely talk about this publicly. I once in a while bring it up on Twitter. So I took the leap into esports, and then took the leap in December of, oh my gosh, too many years ago. That moment where I went from like part-time, I had like 5 or 6 writing gigs, and I decided to make the full-time leap. Was what year is it? 2019. It was December 20. Oh my gosh, I think it was 2017 or 2018. Years meld together. It's definitely 2017. And about 5 to 6 months later, in April of the following year, I almost died. I one day woke up and apparently had developed severe nut allergies, and I was not aware. And I actually ended up lying in the front door of my house, dying, with an ambulance being called. And I was taken to the hospital, and I'm here today, so we're all good.
We're happy to have you here today.
I'm here today. I'm happy to be here.
Tremendously scary.
Yeah, it was tremendously scary. And I remember thinking, I had left a paying job with benefits. I now had been presented with this insurmountable challenge of, trying to figure out how to live life with these allergies, in conjunction with traveling for tournaments and doing coverage. And I remember being very overwhelmed. I remember being very scared at the decision I had made. And I remember thinking, well, who's going to hire a writer, or who's going to hire somebody in any position who could drop dead at like the drop of a hat if someone throws peanuts at her? So I remember having this real big fear and real doubt that like this condition that I suddenly had, that's a chronic condition that's not going anywhere. Why would anyone want to take a chance on me with this baggage that I'm bringing to any job that I have? And it was 2017, April 2017, that I almost died. And it was a very hard thing to kind of reconcile with, and kind of, not be scared every day. Like, if I go into an office, or I get a job working in an esports office, like, how is that going to work with my allergies? I can't touch peanuts, and, everyone loves peanut butter and loves ramen with peanuts, or can't tell you how many people love nuts in my life. But anyway, so it was a very hard thing to reconcile. And that's a personal issue that I had. It wasn't necessarily like a professional one, but it bled into my professional career, right? I had made this leap. I had made this choice to do this. And then I was faced with this huge challenge, and a huge amount of self-doubt, and a huge amount of, why would anybody want me with this baggage? But I'm happy to say that people and I'm still in the industry, so clearly I have something beyond peanut allergies that is entertaining. But professionally, there's been a couple hurdles. I'd be lying if I said that issues of sexism don't exist in esports. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't presented with challenges when it came to companies deciding. We all know about Upcomer and this especially this week, they've let go of more of their writers. And this has been kind of a pattern of theirs over the past little while, but it's a pattern in the general esports scene, right? You have companies that get in with very lofty goals and want to make money right away, and they have, huge budgets, and they blow it because they think that, esports is a short-term thing, not a long-term thing. So I've been in situations where I've been hired, I've had job stability, and then someone's been like, yeah, no, not anymore. We're not doing this anymore. And then I've lost my job. Those are really challenging things. Instability in esports or having job security is a huge personal fear of a lot of ours, especially journalists, especially content creators. When you think of as a kid, you never really thought that a job wouldn't have security. You see parents that have a job, you see, your aunts and uncles, and they all have jobs, and no one talks about the fact that, job security is kind of a myth. At least in esports it is. So that's definitely been a professional hurdle that I've had to come over. With HotSpawn, I think that we haven't really had too many big ones, thankfully. Knock on the wood. But I mean, with us, it was a matter of, building a good management team and having, a good editor. Chelsea, who is our editor-in-chief, amazing, and she does a fantastic job. But she started, I think, January, and she editor, I think, February, March, I think. So it wasn't until a couple months later. So it's finding the right people, finding the right writers is also challenging. A lot of people want to do the job, but the job is, I don't know if you've ever written before, but it's not the most glorious job. If you don't like it,
it's not easy.
It's not. It's a lot of long hours. You're generally not paid hourly, so you're paid by word. And I mean, we do have a really good per word rate at HotSpawn. I'm really thankful that we're able to afford our writers a good pay. But they're also normally writing for 4 or 5 other companies because you can't generally just write for one. So for us, it's been a lot about finding the right team. It's been about finding the right opportunities. I'm so thankful that we haven't had like a problem like I've had in my personal life to overcome. But everyone has their little struggles.
Definitely, and it seems like HotSpawn's put together a really amazing team because a lot of, with esports, it's developing people's passions. Because esports, basically, it is a business based off people's passions for the game, for the competition. So that is one thing that I could see a lot of businesses, faltering on with, maybe they just want the quick buck. You're not going to make that in esports, whether you're going into streaming or websites.
It doesn't matter. I mean, unless you're buying a team and then selling it and flipping it for a profit, which I don't think anyone has done. Maybe the Houston Outlaws count because they just got bought for $40 million when they bought in for, I think it was 10 to was the buy-in amount when they first came in. So they flipped a profit, but that's over that's 2 seasons, right? They've done that over a longer period of time. You don't get into esports with the goals of making a quick buck. And I think that you're absolutely right. You're basing your argument or basing your business off of someone's passion. And that passion's always going to be there, but it's a matter of what are you going to do with it? And it's a matter of what are you bringing to the table that somebody else doesn't have. That's why we were really proud of what we were doing with our tech reviews, because we were able to find, an area in esports and in content that, was missing. No one was talking about, what the products are, like the chairs that we're sitting on, why these chairs were good in relation to just playing a game that we see on the big screen, right? Big companies like SteelSeries, for example, or HyperX, or Corsair, they're sponsoring teams to give their material to them in the hopes that when they see fans watching it on Twitch, they go, oh yeah, I've seen my favorite player use this keyboard, therefore I need to use
it has to be good.
Keyboard. It has to be good, right? And what was missing and what is missing and why we're doing it is there's that lack of accessibility, right? I'm not a pro player. We all know this. And our writers who are doing it are not pro players. We're, pretty average players who enjoy video games, and we also work in esports. So we wanted to kind of meld together esports and tech reviews in a way that was accessible to everyone. To say, I'm not a 5K MMR Dota 2 player, but I can tell you why this keyboard works really well for me, or why it doesn't work when I'm playing this game, or why I can tell you that my chair is really comfortable and it helps me game for longer without, using marketing techniques like paying for a player to use or paying for a team to play it. So our focus is, you really do actually have to find those niches. You have to find what's missing, and then you have to, figure out how to make money off of it.
Exactly. And again, because OPC, we're kind of curious. We love the market. We love the people who play the games, and we love the people in the industry. Now, we're curious, but it doesn't have to be your OPC. But what's your favorite peripheral that's helped you either do what you do or play your games? You probably have a few by now.
I have never been asked that question. My favorite gaming. So I do really like my seat, and that's not exaggeration or a lie or even like I am not paid. This is not an ad. Hashtag not sponsored. I would have to say. So the thing that I'd say my mouse. I would 100% say my mouse. So my seat is like my staple. I'd say I can't actually game like when I switched chairs really a month ago. I've never had better back support, and I've never been able to go an 8 hour day working and then be like, yeah, I'm totally gonna game for another 6 hours in the same chair. I've been sitting there all day. I've done that before. Now I can. Thank you for literally feeding my addiction. But I think my mouse is literally for gaming wise. It changed the game for me when I found that there were mice that were not meant for men, which sounds really dumb. I was at a couple years ago, and I went to Schoolmaster actually, and they had a mouse that was geared towards women, but in reality, it was geared towards people who have smaller hands. And I tried that mouse, and my life changed forever. Like I couldn't fathom that there was a mouse that wasn't a standard size that fit my hand so comfortably, and it was a claw based. It wasn't long, so I was also like my hand didn't hurt afterwards, and I wasn't getting like it changed. Yeah, I'd say my chair and my mouse are like my favorite. I literally when I travel take my mouse off of my PC and take it with me for my laptop so I can use it, because that's how much I love my mouse.
That's a lot of love for the mouse right there.
It's a lot of love. It gets a lot of wear and a lot of dings on it at this point, but like I love that mouse.
Fantastic. Yeah. I love being able to hear about, some of the products that people use that actually like they love using it because it helps them do what they do, and it's fantastic.
I mean, I've also had a nap in this chair, so it's pretty much besides my couch like my favorite thing.
That's fantastic to hear. And then we're also curious, is there anywhere that people can hear or, read a little bit more about what you do?
Yeah, so this year I took the leap to brand myself, which sounds, I basically created my own business here, which was a big step for me.
Congratulations. That's a massive step. It really is, especially in this industry.
Oh my God, it was so, and the thing was I never really considered what I was doing to be I wasn't a brand, I was an individual working. And I had this talk with basically some friends, and they were just like, no, like what you're doing is a business. You're just a one-person business at this point. And I was like, oh my gosh, I had never considered that. And then I went through the whole, oh my God, I'm terrified because I've never been an entrepreneur and I'm going to go cry in a closet for a while. And so I started my business. It's called eNorth Media because I am from Canada, so actually Toronto right now. And it's essentially a website that shows what I do, what I am known for. It's literally enorthmedia.com. You can find me at. That has a little bit about what I do professionally, and I'll be adding some more content in there about what I do. I'm really excited about that. I also have a nonprofit side of the organization that I'll be launching hopefully by the end of this year, because if there's anything we've learned working with nonprofits, so I thought I should give back and be able to support the best as I could. So that would be the great first step to go to. For content wise, HotSpawn is a great place to go to. For Twitter, also really great. It's really interesting that you asked though, because I realize I don't talk about myself as an individual as much as I do else.
Yeah.
It's the flip here. It's the flip of being interviewed instead of interviewing someone. I
Yeah.
think that's kind of making my mind.
Well,
Yeah,
we
it's
wanted to
great.
make sure we got to, because every company they have, it's people. People run everything. And in this world of esports and streaming or article writing, it's people and the passion that drive it. So just like streaming, the numbers, they're all people. So
Yeah.
or the numbers of people who either click on ads on the website or read the comments or reply to the
Yep.
comments, they're people. So
Yeah.
we like to know the people behind the companies as well.
Of course. Yeah.
And
That's
one
a
thing
great
we've loved.
great thing. Yeah. I mean, that's why I got into esports. So it's just weird to be on the other side. I'm like, oh yeah, I guess I am a person who you could learn about. That's a thing.
Exactly.
I also have Instagram, which is like my more personal thing. Whoever wants.
Definitely. Well, if you send, we'll make sure to like include a lot of links of where people can find you, things like that, in the description. Are you planning on heading to any events this year? Either,
Yes, actually. So we are, as I said, HotSpawn is sponsoring Midas Mode, which is happening on the 24th of September till the 2nd of October. So I will be there for the full duration. I'm actually going to be the on-air interviewer, so you'll be able to see me in action, which will be really fun. I'm also heading to actually DreamHack Montreal the first weekend of September
that should
to
be
do
fun.
That's gonna be super fun.
I love DreamHacks.
I know, and I just started getting into Rainbow Six, so I'm like really eager to like actually get to talk to players and like jump into it. It's gonna be a lot of fun. And then I'm actually heading to a esports conference, ESI London, in the middle of September. Yeah, if anyone wants, it's mostly a conference for esports working professionals, but if anyone's going, I will be there as well. As per, I don't know what I'm doing for October, November yet. We'll see. I have lofty dreams of going to Rotterdam to go to a Dota 2 tournament, which is in the Netherlands. So that might be fun. I'm really hoping that this next season of the DP, I am a Dota. I mean, I also have a Dota 2 tattoo that I just got done.
Oh wow, that looks fantastic.
So you can say I'm a little bit of a Dota 2 fanboy at this point.
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit. I'm really hoping that the DP, the 2020 season is has more North American tournaments. So I'm really hoping to be able to go in the coming months. But yeah, that's where I'm going in the next little while.
Well, we certainly wish you the best of luck getting to all these tournaments or events. It seems like everything's going, like amazingly well for you, and we applaud all the effort you're putting in.
It's a lot of hard work. I will not lie. This has not come easily, guys.
Not in the slightest.
No.
Well, Jillian, it's been amazing having you on the OPSEAT video podcast. Truly, truly an honor to be able to speak to you.
Thank you. I've had an absolute blast. To be honest, as I said before, I don't get the opportunity really to talk about myself, and it's been really, I don't know, enlightening to also hear my answers and hear what you have to ask me, and help as much as I can with anyone who's looking to get into the industry or just wants some helpful tips. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much.